The news at 10 o'clock now on BBC One with Sophie Raworth.
At 10, Edinburgh's Hogmanay celebrations are cancelled as extreme weather warnings are issued for large parts of the UK. Tens of thousands of tickets have already been sold for what is normally one of the biggest outdoor celebrations of New Year's Eve in the world. Also tonight, the Welsh Ambulance Service has just declared a rare critical incident tonight, with patients waiting hours for an ambulance and hundreds of emergency calls waiting to be answered. 5 people are charged in Argentina in connection with the death of One Direction's Liam Payne, among them one of his friends. In Ukraine, we witness one of the largest prisoner exchanges since war began with Russia nearly 3 years ago, and speak to some of those who've been released. And as astronomers get ready, we'll tell you about the once-in-a-lifetime celestial event that is on its way. Good evening. Edinburgh has called off its Hogmanay celebrations for tonight and tomorrow on New Year's Eve. Tens of thousands of tickets had already been sold. Organisers say high winds and extreme weather mean the street party, concert and midnight fireworks from the city's castle cannot go ahead. There's a rare amber warning for rain further north, meaning a danger to life around Aviemore and in parts of the Highlands. Rain, snow and strong winds will hit large parts of the UK this week, with a series of weather warnings coming into force between today and Thursday. Travel disruption is expected tomorrow. More on that in a moment. But first, Katrina Renton is in Edinburgh for us tonight. Katrina.
Well, Sophie, the last time that outdoor events at Hogmanay in Edinburgh were cancelled due to bad weather was back in 2006. 45,000 people were due to come to the party here tomorrow night. And this evening I've been in town and I've met people from all over the world who have told us that they were coming here to bring in the bells to see in the new year. And of course there is disappointment, but organisers have said that they had to take this decision, but with a heavy heart.
Tonight, a subdued atmosphere as the dampeners were put on Scotland's biggest Hogmanay party. This was last year's event, what people from all over the world come to Edinburgh to experience. And preparations were taking place today for the famous street party, the concert due to be headlined by Texas, and spectacular fireworks. That was until this afternoon, when organisers announced they have had to cancel the outdoor events on safety grounds after the Met Office issued yellow warnings for wind and rain.
We're deeply disappointed to make the decision. It's not something that we take lightly, but again, the weather that we've experienced over the last 48 hours and are expected to experience in the next 24 hours just meant we weren't able to build the infrastructure both for the performances and also the safety infrastructure.
Of course, people are disappointed, but understand.
Yeah, I didn't know the street party was off. I just got off the plane.
We wanted to see the fireworks, but it's not there anymore. It's just the rain.
New Year is about that. It's about celebration, about party. So, I'm disappointed.
Well, it just sums 2024 up, doesn't it?
Organisers of other events, like the Stonehaven Fireballs in Aberdeenshire, plan to still go ahead.
The fireballs are going ahead as planned. The only issue is whether it would be for the spectators to come and stand for a couple of hours beforehand.
The north of the country has already been deluged with rain. This is what part of the Highland Main Railway line was up against. And there is an amber warning for rain in place for parts of the area tomorrow. The worst of the weather is due to have passed through Scotland by New Year's Day. But there are yellow warnings for wind and rain for the south of England. Katrina Renton, BBC News, Edinburgh.
Well, the heavy rain and strong winds are likely to bring travel disruption for the new year. Simon Browning is at London's Euston Station for us tonight. A lot of people are going to be on the move tomorrow on New Year's Day. How's it looking?
Yes, Sophie, as we've been hearing from Katrina in Edinburgh, stormy and wet conditions are likely to impact travel tomorrow. The Met Office predicts disruption in northern Scotland, where there's the amber weather warning in place with lots of rain. In a separate weather warning. There's parts of rain predicted in England and Wales, in the south of England tomorrow afternoon, and just to add to that, a threat of high winds in Durham and North Yorkshire, with particular care and attention needed for those in cars and high-sided vehicles. But I'm here at London Euston because tomorrow we see a fresh round of train strikes for Avanti passengers. There's going to be only one service per hour on trains to Birmingham, Manchester and Preston, as well as lots of travel disruption through the day. And with engineering works happening on January the 2nd and New Year's Day, there's lots of happening in London.
Simon
Sophie,
Browning at London's Euston, thank you. Now, the Welsh Ambulance Service has tonight declared a critical incident after hundreds of 999 emergency calls were waiting to be answered. Some patients were waiting many hours for an ambulance. Our correspondent Frances Reid is with me now, and they are stressing this is a rare event.
Yeah, they are stressing that, but at the time the critical incident was declared, 340 999 calls were waiting to be answered. More than half of the Trust's ambulance vehicles were waiting to hand over patients outside hospitals. That means some patients have waited and continue to wait this evening for many, many hours. The Trust says, as you say, that it's rare to declare a critical incident, but its ability to help patients has been impacted. They've apologised, saying the long waits for 999 calls to be answered and for ambulances to then actually arrive is not the level of service that it wants to provide. The advice to the public in Wales is to only call 999 in the event of a life-threatening emergency. What's caused it to be a critical incident? Well, by declaring it, they can actually then ask for more help. But we also know in the last week that staff, patients and visitors at some Welsh hospitals have been asked to wear masks, and that's because of the rising cases of flu. And we know that the high rate of flu is putting pressure on hospitals, frankly, right across the country.
Frances Reid, thank you. 5 people have been charged in Argentina in connection with the death of the former One Direction star Liam Payne. The 31-year-old died after taking drugs and falling from a third-floor balcony at a hotel in Buenos Aires in October. A hotel manager, receptionist and a friend of the singer have been charged with manslaughter. 2 others who worked at the hotel have been charged with supplying drugs. Our correspondent Tom Simons has more.
That final night, Liam Payne was intoxicated by drugs, vulnerable, defenceless, according to this new and detailed statement about events at the Buenos Aires hotel. Prosecutors say staff were aware of his condition but took him to his room, later found trashed, and left him. Investigators believe Liam Payne fell from the balcony while trying to find the exit. They say there's enough evidence to support a type of manslaughter charge. The businessman Rogelio Roger Norres, Liam Payne's friend and driver in Argentina, abandoned him to his fate, they say. 2 hotel staff, Gilda Martin and Esteban Grassi, acted recklessly by allowing the singer to be taken to his room. Another hotel worker, Isquiel Pereira, and a waiter, Brian Pais, are accused of supplying him cocaine. Mr. Pais's lawyer says yes, they took drugs, but his client didn't sell them, and he questions why there are manslaughter charges for those accused of simply not looking after Liam Payne.
What happens in these cases is that there's a witch hunt. They search for people to blame where there are none. People are charged with things they did not commit, or at least people are held responsible for more than they should be.
Liam Payne's death left his fans distraught, so this is a high-profile case. Police gathered hundreds of hours of CCTV footage, phone messages and hotel records. What's not in doubt is that the singer's life in the spotlight left him struggling with addiction.
When we were in the band, the best way to secure us, because of how big it got, was just lock us in our rooms. And of course, what's in the room? Minibar. So at a certain point, I thought, well, I'm going to have a party for one. And that just seemed to carry on throughout many years of my life.
The Argentine judge overseeing this case has said no one involved wanted him to lose his life, but their actions had put it at risk. Tom Simons, BBC News.
President Zelensky has announced one of the largest prisoner exchanges since full-scale war began with Russia nearly 3 years ago. 189 Ukrainian troops are being returned home from captivity and 150 Russian soldiers are being returned in the deal which was brokered by the United Arab Emirates. Will Vernon is in northern Ukraine, where the prisoner swap happened, and has been speaking to some of those who were released.
The wait is finally over. Ukrainian families overcome with emotion as they greet their loved ones. The first time they'd seen or spoken to them for years.
I'm very happy to return to my own country, to my own land. I have no words to say what I feel.
For those unable to make it, the phone call they'd been waiting for. I'm coming home, says this man. Yes, I'll be home soon.
How does it feel to be home?
I'm overwhelmed by feelings. Thank God this day has come. We're home. Now we're going to support Ukraine with everything we've got.
Well, some of these men have been in captivity for more than 2.5 years. You can just see the emotion on their faces to finally return to their homeland, Ukraine, to their families, just in time for the New Year holidays.
The Russian authorities said 150 of their citizens had returned from Ukrainian captivity and were being given medical treatment. Back in Ukraine, for some families, the wait continues. These women show photos of their loved ones to those released, hoping someone will recognize them. We want to know he's alive, says Mariana, who's looking for her nephew. We're asking everyone we see. With thousands of Ukrainians still in captivity or missing, the desperate search for many families will go on. Will Vernon, BBC News, Northern Ukraine.
Well, 2025 is likely to be a pivotal year for the war in Ukraine, with Russia still making advances in the east of Ukraine and Donald Trump promising to end the conflict when he takes office, something which many Ukrainians now want. Our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale reports now from Dnipro in eastern Ukraine.
This is where some of the fiercest fighting has been taking place, near Kurakhova, on the Eastern Front. This drone footage shows Ukrainian forces still resisting, but they're slowly being surrounded. Nearby, a mortar team has been trying to slow the Russian advance. Not your average soldiers, a group of non-conformist friends. They call themselves anarchists.
How many winters have you done? Is this your third?
Yes. We meet at a safe house in a respite from the fighting. They know Donald Trump wants to bring an end to the war. The question, after nearly 3 years of fighting, can they really carry on?
Would you prefer to start negotiating, or would you prefer to keep fighting?
I prefer to keep fighting.
We need just go on and try to do our best.
They still train when resting. They say it keeps them motivated, even though they're losing ground. This is the price of that defiance. The numbers wounded and killed. At this one field hospital, in just 1 hour, another dozen wounded arrive. The surgeon called it a quiet night. Even Ukraine admits that it suffered more than 400,000 casualties. That includes killed and injured. Russia even more. And it's the sheer scale of those casualties that's prompting the questions as to how much longer this war can go on. There are signs that the public are war-weary. At a theatre in Dnipro, they pause to remember the dead. But they're also looking for normality in abnormal times. Opinion polls suggest increasing support for negotiations.
Unfortunately, there are fewer of us. That's why we have to sit down and negotiate.
Some of the strongest voices for a ceasefire come from those who've been forced to flee. These women all want one. They're in temporary accommodation. Their homes are now in occupied territory. But Ukraine will have to sacrifice some of its land if there's to be an end to this war. Jonathan Beale, BBC News, Dnipro.
The former US President Jimmy Carter, who died yesterday at the age of 100, will lie in state at the US Capitol for 2 days ahead of his funeral on January the 9th, allowing members of the public to pay their respects. As is custom, marking the death of important figures and leaders, President Biden has also ordered US flags on federal properties to be flown at half-staff for 30 days, which in theory will include the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump on January the 20th. South Korea's acting president has ordered an inspection of the country's entire fleet of aircraft after the crash yesterday morning that killed 179 people. They were flying back from a Christmas in Thailand. Only 2 crew members survived. Distraught families have refused to leave the airport while they wait for information about their loved ones. The exact cause of the crash at one international airport remains unclear, though investigators are looking at a possible bird strike and landing gear failure. Jean Mackenzie sent this report.
The bereaved are at breaking point. These outbursts come every few minutes. A day on from the crash, they're still at the airport, waiting to be reunited with their loved ones' bodies. Why have only 5 bodies been released? This woman yells. You're useless. A police official spares her no details. They're too badly damaged, he says. Forensic teams are still piecing them together. It's disturbing to hear. And for Shin Yu-ho, it's even worse. His 2 teenage grandsons haven't even been identified.
I've been sitting here all day hoping for news. I'm so frustrated. I feel like I'm waiting without an end.
The plane was carrying Koreans back from Christmas holidays in Thailand when it landed at speed without its wheels down. As it crashed, every passenger was killed. Investigators are now trying to work out why the landing gear seemed to fail, but the flight recorder is damaged. It'll take time to decipher the data. So today, the attention has turned to what happened on the runway. When the plane made its emergency landing, it was still intact, but because it couldn't stop, it then overshot the runway here. And we now know that it hit this concrete and orange structure that has been raised up on this grassy mound. This is a guidance system that is supposed to help planes land, but this is the point at which the plane exploded into this fireball and fractured into many pieces. And aviation experts are now questioning why this was positioned in this way, so raised up and so close to the end of the runway. The acting president has ordered an investigation of the country's entire aviation industry. Without answers, the families don't know who to blame. For now, the only place they can direct their anger is at the forensic teams, who are still searching, yet to complete their grueling, unenviable task. Jean Mackenzie, BBC News, Muan Airport.
Jewellery worth more than £10 million has been stolen, along with designer handbags worth £150,000 from a house in Primrose Hill in North London. The homeowners are offering a £500,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the suspected thief. The world's #1 chess player, Magnus Carlsen, says he will go back to a major chess competition after a dispute about what he was wearing. The sport's governing body has agreed now to relax its dress code. Carlsen quit the World Rapid and Blitz Chess Championships in New York on Friday after being told he couldn't continue to play while wearing jeans. Football, and Ipswich have shocked high-flying Chelsea with a 2-0 victory against the Blues tonight. Meanwhile, Manchester United also lost 2-0 at home to Newcastle, leaving Ruben Amorim's team 14th in the Premier League. Andy Swiss was watching.
Look who's back. After missing the last 4 games, Marcus Rashford returned to the Manchester United squad, albeit starting on the bench. The questions continue to mount. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
Now, a star system called T-Core Bore, which you can't normally see with the naked eye, is about to brighten the night skies. It happens just once every 80 years, and astronomers believe this rare celestial event may be imminent. Our science editor, Rebecca Morell, reports.
In Banai Brecaineog, also known as the Brecon Beacons, astronomers are scanning the skies to see a celestial explosion, revealing a star that's normally too faint for us to see, called T Corona Borealis, or T Corb for short.
T Corb is dim at the minute, so it's about magnitude 10 normally, and that is well below what you can see with the naked eye.
But that could all be about to change. Every 80 years or so, T Corb is predicted to light up the sky, but not for long.
It's only going to be visible to the naked eye for a couple of days. Of course, if you've got a small pair of binoculars or a small telescope, you'll be able to see it for a little bit longer because you've got that magnifying tool. But I do think that its short stint in the sky makes it really special.
T Corb is actually two stars orbiting around each other. A small white dwarf, which is a dead star, and a much larger red giant. The white dwarf has an immense gravitational pull, and it's consistently dragging material away from the red giant. Over time, this material builds up until it explodes, releasing a huge amount of energy. And this makes T Corb briefly appear much brighter in the night sky. The last time this happened was in 1946, when Michael Woodman was 15. The Newport schoolboy had stayed up late waiting for his dad to come home.
So I looked out of my bedroom window, and there, in the ring of the Corona Borealis, second star down was bright, very bright. I thought, well, I've never seen that like that before. Following morning, I thought, well, I'll get in touch with the Astronomer Royal.
The Astronomer Royal wrote back and told him, remarkably, that he was the first person in the UK to have seen this.
It did give me some notoriety, that's the word. And they used to say, he's the chap who saw the star.
So who do you think that is? Who do you think that is?
Michael Woodman's now 94. There are 4 generations of his family. Seeing T Corb again will put him in an exclusive club of just one. So for stargazers, are there any early signs that T Corb is about to ignite into brightness?
It seems that in the past this has dimmed a little bit before it's actually erupted. And there are signs that maybe at the moment it's just dipping a little bit in brightness. So maybe that's a hint that it's getting close to its eruption.
For now, astronomers will have to keep watching and waiting. Rebecca Morell, BBC News, Banai Brecaineog.
What they're going to need are clear skies. I'm not sure we're going to get those for a while, Darren, are we?
Sure we are, Sophie. No, there's a lot of wet, windy and then cold weather to come as we head over the new year. At the moment, though, the focus and into tomorrow is on this amber rain warning from the Met Office. And within this area, there are already a number of severe flood warnings. It's been very wet in Scotland for the past couple of days or so. Not only are we seeing heavy rain overnight, but there'll be some snow in Highland and Grampian for a while. Then it'll melt, just adding to the flood risk. There'll be some rain coming into Northern Ireland as well later on. But for England and Wales, it's going to be dry, breezy and mild away from the far north of Scotland, where we're going to find some more snow as we head into tomorrow, heading up towards the Northern Isles. The rain in the mainland of Scotland will tend to ease and become more showery, and this band of rain will sink down into northern England and Wales. To the south of it, it's dry, but it's a windier day, particularly across this part of the country. But of course, it is a southwesterly wind, so it's bringing in mild air. Temperatures 11-12 degrees, except in northern Scotland, where it's staying cold. Now, if you're going to be celebrating New Year in Wales and northern England, you're likely to get wet because there'll be quite a lot of rain over the hills. That could lead to some flooding too. Now, this band of rain is going to push southwards during New Year's Day, but on the rain and to the south of it, it's going to be very windy. And following the rain, things get colder. We've got snow and ice for northern Scotland and a wintry mix of rain and hill snow for Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, then into northern England. And if anything, during the day, as we see this northerly wind coming in, temperatures are going to be dropping. The last of any mild air is in the far southeast of England, but here it'll be a wet and windy end to the day. Now, that weather front is going to move away. Following on from that, there'll be a few wintry showers even coming into England and Wales, so it could be an icy start into Thursday. Cold air coming all the way down from the north, a few more wintry showers, a widespread frost on Thursday. Many places, though, will be sunny.
Sunshine. I'm glad you mentioned the sunshine, Darren. Thank you. That's it from the BBC News at 10. Time now for the news where you are. Goodbye.
A very good evening to you on the eve of New Year's Eve, and in less than 24 hours thousands of people will descend on central London for the annual fireworks display which will usher in 2025. As we've been hearing, concerns over the weather has affected events in other parts of the country, and here City Hall says it's monitoring the forecast in light of a warning of high winds. Matt Graveling has been to see how preparations for the big night are going.
Possibly the most famous bongs and bangs in the world. But as the capital counts down to this year's display, it does so amidst warnings of winds and ticket touts.
But before the fireworks can light up London, there's been around 5 months of preparation, and now we have 3 barges, and in total they're carrying around 10,000 fireworks. And we get to look around, but we can't go looking like this. That's a bit better. Well, this is the barge that's going to be moored in front of the London Eye. I'm joined by Daryl Fleming, the man in charge of the whole thing. Nerves?
Yeah, a little bit nervous at the moment, but lots of planning and preparation.
What happens if there's bad weather?
So, rain's not a problem. The big enemy is the wind. The first thing we can do is alter the angle of the fireworks. We've already made that decision to do that, so we can angle things slightly into the wind so that we can increase that safety distance. And then ultimately, if the wind is strong enough that we feel that some of the debris might be falling beyond the safety zones, we can specifically remove certain fireworks from certain locations.
City Hall has said it is monitoring the weather, with gusts of 41 miles per hour expected in the run-up to midnight tomorrow.
So at the moment what we're doing in here is prepping all of the control panels. So this is the technical side of things, which will physically fire the show for us.
Due to the scale of the event, each barge has its own unique set of digital instructions to determine what happens and when. And every firework has an electric igniter, which when given a small voltage will launch it into the sky.
Daryl, the countdown's going 3, 2, 1. What's your heart doing at this moment?
It's going about 200 beats a minute. It's the worst part for me is because we can't rig the eye until 6 o'clock on the night itself. The most iconic part of the show isn't rigged until literally 6 hours before, and then as soon as that last shell lifts and you hear the applause, it's just euphoria really and relief.
65,000 tickets were sold for this event in October. The Metropolitan Police say if you don't have a ticket, please do not attend, and the Mayor of London says if you do have a ticket, bring your ID, watch out for scammers, and most importantly, have a very happy New Year.
Matt Graveling, BBC London.
Indeed, and a reminder, if you're trying to get around the capital tomorrow, you can get regular travel